Global warming angle that we cover in Chapter 1 of An Inconvenient Book is how climate change and their cheerleaders that you see in the media are anything but independent. They love to talk about how the oil companies fund the studies to distort the truth. But the reality is that the conflict of interest works both ways. Oh, and I detail it in the book. And that is when it's most dangerous, when it is hidden from you. For example, did you watch NBC last week? You probably saw their Green is Universal promotion. It's great. They changed their logo, their website. Let's hug a tree. They even changed the plots of their sitcoms by corporate mandate, all to bring awareness to the issues of climate change. Wow, what stewards of the earth they really are over at NBC. Unfortunately, what NBC didn't tell you is far more important, that they are a subsidiary of General Electric. General Electric. Important for two reasons. First, GE has a bigger lobbying budget than the three largest U.S. oil companies combined. But more importantly, GE owns major environmental businesses like GE Energy, which has made huge bets on things like wind power and clean energy technologies. And they stand to make boatloads of cash if Congress passes all sorts of environmental legislation and you decide to go green. Imagine the uproar if ABC did a week-long series called War with Iran, complete with Islamic extremists competing on Dancing with Stars. But only later did you find out that ABC would actually be owned by Raytheon, one of the Pentagon's largest weapons suppliers. You think the New York Times might cover that story? This, honestly, is one of the worst manipulations of the public trust I have ever seen. In fact, I believe it's damn near criminal what they've done, and somebody should look into their license. NBC and GE have used the public airwaves against us, and they've done it all for the only type of green that they really care about, and that is money. Once you cut through the propaganda, GE's real motive becomes very, very clear. It's time you heard the full truth behind NBC's Green Week, and you will in 60 seconds. Welcome back to An Inconvenient segment. Tonight, we are exposing the major conflict of interest that NBC and its parent company, GE, are hiding when it comes to promoting environmentalism. Tim Carney is the author of The Big Ripoff, How Big Business and Big Government Steal Your Money. Tim, I'm amazed because this is really not about NBC saying you should have a choice and maybe choose a hybrid SUV. This is about legislation and special interest money.
NBC's parent company, General Electric, actually spends more money on lobbying than any other corporation in America. Over the last 6 months, first 6 months of this year, they spent $12 million on lobbying. And I see their Green Week as just another extension of that huge lobbying arm. So if they're saying, well, you shouldn't leave the lights on when you leave the room, then that's a great idea. But this company is investing $1.5 billion in renewable fuels, in carbon dioxide credits, things that are basically worthless without government action. That's why they have such a big lobbying.
Yeah, this is what's fascinating to me is that they actually bought all the trading systems and a lot of the stuff that Enron was developing, before they went evil. And they bought it because they thought Enron is onto something. If this legislation comes to the United States, we're in the money, right?
Absolutely. They just launched a joint venture that's about investing in carbon dioxide credits and 10 million metric tons of CO2 worth credits. And these are worth nothing right now in the United States because, well, we can emit CO2. We're a free country right now. If Joe Lieberman, John McCain, Hillary Clinton get their way, then you know what? These credits that they bought cheap because they're worthless all of a sudden become worth a lot of money by these companies who are restricted.
It's really, truly amazing. Up on the Drudge Report earlier this afternoon, there was a story about Al Gore and how he's a venture capitalist now. He's got some money to play with, and he was thinking about calling GE up. I mean, it just doesn't stop how these companies... Well, let me ask you this way. Do you think this is something that maybe the FCC or the SEC should look into? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a more blatant use of propaganda than this.
And again, I think it's an extension of their lobbying arm. They use these shows, they use this hype to try to push to pump up the call for more regulation on greenhouse gases, and that they at least journalistically ought to disclose that their parent company stands to profit from.
I mean, I have seen infomercials with more credibility. At the end, they need to say, "Look, I want you to know we're making money off of this." If NBC wanted to do this, and at the end of the episodes, they would have said, "Full disclosure, we're owned by GE. We stand to profit, billions of dollars if this legislation goes through." Then they wouldn't have a problem with it.
One of their CNBC anchors, I did see on his blog, disclosed that said maybe we ought to mention that GE is heavily invested in windmills, heavily invested in solar panels, and now heavily invested in CO2 credits. And so this is, but if an oil company owned a TV station and they dedicated a week, Black Gold Week, to talking about the beauties of driving and the beauties of oil, you would think that people would be all over the fact that their parent company stands to profit from.
Jim, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Hey,
I didn't know about, I'm sorry, NBC, I didn't know that you had it on a CNBC blog, that disclosure.